You've probably heard of the name Paul, the man who wrote over half of the New Testament and spread the gospel across the Roman world. Or maybe you've seen one of his heartfelt verses framed on your mom's kitchen wall. But how much do you really know about him? Here are 5 things you might not have known about the Apostle Paul. Number 1. Paul was a couple of years younger than Jesus. Scholars estimate that Paul was born between 2 to 6 years after the birth of Christ, making him just a few years younger than Jesus. When Jesus began his ministry around age 30, Paul would have been in his mid-20s, still studying and rising as a zealous Pharisee in Jerusalem. By the time Jesus appeared to him on the road to Damascus, which would be around AD 33 through 36, Paul was likely in his early 30s. Most scholars believe Paul was martyred under Emperor Nero around AD 64 through 67, which means he was probably in his 60s when he died. A long life for someone who endured shipwrecks, beatings, and imprisonment. It's amazing to think that when Paul was a young man studying under Gamaliel, Jesus was teaching and performing miracles just a few miles away, and years later, the risen Christ would appear to Paul personally. Number 2. Paul's mysterious 3 years in Arabia. After meeting Jesus on the road to Damascus, Paul didn't go straight to Jerusalem or start traveling with the apostles. Instead, he vanished for about 3 years into Arabia, a place the Bible barely mentions. In his letter to the Galatians, Paul simply says, "I did not go up to Jerusalem to those who were apostles before me, but I went away into Arabia, and afterward I returned to Damascus." Most scholars believe this Arabia was part of the Nabatean kingdom where the famous city of Petra was located. During this time, Paul was probably reflecting, praying, and rereading the Hebrew scriptures in light of Christ. But it wasn't total isolation. In his letter to the Corinthians, Paul mentions that King Aretas IV tried to arrest him, suggesting Paul had already begun preaching boldly and stirring attention even beyond Damascus. The Bible doesn't tell us exactly what happened during those years, but it's as if God took Paul into the wilderness, not to hide him, but to prepare him. Number 3. Paul had relatives who played key roles in his story. Most people know Paul as a bold missionary and church planner, but not many realize the Bible actually mentions some of his family members. Paul was born a Roman citizen, something he inherited from his parents. That citizenship gave him powerful legal rights, and Paul used them wisely. In Acts 22, he even invoked his citizenship to stop a Roman officer from flogging him without trial. But here's something even more personal. Paul had a family living in Jerusalem. His sister and nephew lived there, and his nephew actually saved Paul's life. In Acts 23, when more than 40 men made a secret vow to kill Paul, his young nephew overheard the plot and warned the Roman commander, leading to Paul's safe transfer to Caesarea. Later in Romans 16, Paul greets several of his relatives in Rome, showing that his family was more connected and widespread than we often realize. Even the great apostle Paul wasn't serving God alone. God placed family around him for protection and support when he needed it most. Number 4. Paul's physical appearance was unremarkable. The Bible never actually tells us what Paul looked like, but early Christian writings give us a glimpse. A 2nd century text called the Acts of Paul and Thecla, not part of the Bible, but an ancient Christian story, describes Paul as a man small in size, bald-headed, crooked legs, with eyebrows that met, and a slightly hooked nose, full of grace. Church fathers like Lucian describe him as standing approximately 4 feet 6 inches tall and being crooked in appearance. This is far from the strong, commanding image we often see in stained glass or paintings. In a letter to the Corinthians, Paul even acknowledges his critics who said his letters are weighty and forceful, but in person he is unimpressive. In his letters, he also refers to a thorn in the flesh and a bodily illness, which could suggest ongoing physical weakness or pain. This is a reminder that God's power isn't found in outward strength or appearance, but in the message and the Spirit working through us. And finally, number 5, Paul likely died under Nero, and the burning of Rome probably had something to do with it. No one knows if Nero actually played the liar while Rome burned, but we do know that many Romans blamed him for the near destruction of their city, and that, following the fire, Nero staged fierce and brutal persecutions of Christians. Many scholars say the reason he lashed out at Christians was to draw blame and attention away from himself for the negative press he was getting over the fire. So what does this have to do with Paul? While the Bible does not specify when and how Paul died, we know that 2 Timothy was written while Paul was in a Roman prison. From 66 to 67 AD, not long after the burning of Rome in 64, and that during this time, Paul was anticipating his death. "For I am already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time for my departure is near. I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith." Furthermore, an early church historian Eusebius wrote that Paul was indeed beheaded at the order of the Roman Emperor Nero. It's a sobering thought. that one of the greatest messengers of Christ may have died at the hands of one of history's most notorious rulers. Yet even facing death, Paul's words still echo with hope, courage, and faith. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. God bless you all, and see you in the next one.